The emergency broadcast crackled across every communication array in the Terran system, its alien harmonics causing static interference that made seasoned communications officers wince. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching as her technical crew struggled to clean up the signal. The message, when it finally came through clearly, would change everything humanity thought it knew about their place in the universe. Citizens of the Sol System, the translated voice began, carrying an odd musical quality that suggested non-human vocal cords. This is Ambassador Kelthera of the Galactic Cooperative Council. We transmit this message in your mathematical languages and through your primitive electromagnetic spectrum because we have monitored your species' recent achievements in faster-than-light communication. Admiral Chun felt her breath catch. First contact protocols had been theoretical until this moment. Around her, the command center had fallen silent except for the soft hum of electronics and the barely audible breathing of 30 shocked personnel. Your species has reached a technological threshold that qualifies you for emergency conscription under Galactic Emergency Protocol 77 Alpha. We are aware this may cause confusion, as you were not previously informed of our existence or the greater galactic community. This was intentional, as per standard quarantine procedures for developing civilizations. Dr. Marcus Webb, the xenobiology specialist who had been hastily summoned from his research lab on Europa, leaned forward in his chair. They're talking about us like we're some kind of resource, he whispered to Chun. The transmission continued. The galaxy faces an existential threat. An extragalactic force known as the Devourers has begun systematic consumption of star systems along our outer rim. Our combined fleets have suffered catastrophic losses. Analysis of your species' historical records and behavioral patterns indicates exceptional aptitude for warfare and tactical adaptation under extreme pressure. Chen exchanged glances with General Rodriguez, who had arrived from Earth just hours earlier. Neither of them liked where this was heading. Your planet's surface conflicts demonstrate remarkable innovation in combat doctrine, individual initiative under pressure, and, most critically, your species' documented tendency to become more effective when facing impossible odds. These characteristics are rare in the galactic community. The transmission paused, and, for a moment, Chen wondered if they had lost the signal. Then, the alien voice resumed, now carrying what sounded like urgency. We formally request immediate military cooperation. In exchange, we offer full technological integration, including faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation systems, and advanced medical technologies that will extend your species' lifespan by approximately 300%. You have 72 of your hours to respond. The transmission ended with a series of mathematical coordinates and technical specifications for a response beacon. For several long moments, nobody in the command center spoke. Finally, Dr. Webb broke the silence. Did an alien civilization just conscript us? General Rodriguez stood up slowly. Admiral, I need to contact Earth Command immediately. And someone get me a direct line to the UN Security Council. Wait, Chen said, holding up a hand. Before we do anything, let's think about this. They said they've been monitoring us. They know about our wars, our history. They're specifically asking for our help because we're good at fighting. Is that supposed to be a compliment? Asked Lieutenant Yates from the communications station. I don't think it matters, Dr. Webb interjected. What matters is that they're facing something that has them scared enough to break their own quarantine protocols and ask a species they consider primitive for help. Chen walked to the main display, where the star charts now showed the coordinates provided in the transmission. Computer, analyze the coordinates and project galactic position. The display shimmered and reformed, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with a pulsing red dot far along the outer arm. The coordinates correspond to a position approximately 27,000 light-years from Sol, in what appears to be a strategically significant location along major hyperspace routes. Hyperspace routes? Rodriguez asked. Presumably their method of faster-than-light travel, Dr. Webb explained. If these devourers are attacking along major transit corridors, they could effectively cut off communication and supply lines between different sectors of the galaxy. Chen studied the display. How long would it take us to get there with our current technology? Approximately 43,000 years at maximum sustainable velocity, the computer responded. So we're useless without their technology, Rodriguez observed. Exactly, Chen replied. Which means if we agree to help, we're completely dependent on them for transportation, supply, and probably everything else. Dr. Webb pulled up another display showing Earth's recent military history. But think about what they said. They've studied our wars, our tactics. Humanity has a documented history of pulling victory from impossible situations. Thermopylae, the Battle of Britain, Stalingrad, the Martian colony defense. We have a pattern of refusing to surrender even when logic says we should. Lieutenant Yates looked up from her station. Admiral, we're receiving multiple communications from Earth. Everyone from the President to the Pope wants to know what's happening. Put me through to Earth Command, Chen ordered. Priority Alpha clearance. The main screen flickered to show the familiar face of Admiral Harrison, Supreme Commander of Earth's unified military forces. His expression was grim. Sarah, please tell me you've got some kind of explanation for what just happened. I wish I did, Admiral. We've received what appears to be a legitimate first contact scenario with a request for immediate military assistance against an extragalactic threat. Harrison's eyebrows rose. Military assistance? They want us to fight for them. With them, sir. At least, that's how they phrased it. They're offering advanced technology in exchange for our military cooperation. What's your assessment? Chen looked around the command center, noting the mix of excitement and apprehension on her crew's faces. Honestly, sir, I think we're looking at the biggest decision in human history. If this is legitimate, and these devourers are as dangerous as they suggest, we might be looking at a threat that could eventually reach Earth. And if it's not legitimate, then we're about to be either enslaved or killed by beings with technology so far beyond ours that resistance would be meaningless. Harrison nodded grimly. I'm calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Every major world leader, military commander, and scientific advisor will be involved. We need options, Sarah. Sir, there is one thing. They mentioned that our species becomes more effective when facing impossible odds. If that's true, and if this threat is as serious as they claim, maybe they're not just conscripting us. Maybe they actually need us. Explain. Dr. Webb stepped forward. Admiral Harrison, Xenobiology Specialist Webb here. If a technologically advanced galactic civilization is specifically seeking out a primitive species for military assistance, it suggests their conventional approaches have failed. They need something different. Our unpredictability, Rodriguez added. Advanced civilizations might fight wars according to established protocols and strategies. Humans have a tendency to ignore rules when survival is at stake. Harrison considered this. So you're suggesting they don't just want cannon fodder. They want us because we think differently. It's possible, sir, Chen replied. The question is whether we can leverage that into a partnership rather than just being used as expendable shock troops. The transmission alert chimed again. Chen quickly activated the receiver, and the same alien voice filled the command center. We understand this development requires consideration. However, time is critical. The Devourer fleet has accelerated its advance. We are transmitting tactical data about the enemy to assist in your decision-making process. The display screens around the command center suddenly filled with images and data streams. What they showed made everyone in the room fall silent. Massive ships, each one easily the size of Earth's moon, moved through space in perfect formation. Behind them, star systems went dark one by one. Where planets had been, only empty space remained. The Devourers do not conquer, the alien voice continued. They consume. They break down matter at the molecular level and convert it to energy and raw materials for their fleet. Entire civilizations, billions of years of evolution, reduced to fuel for their expansion. The images shifted to show battle footage. Ships that made Earth's largest cruisers look like toys were being systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Our combined fleets have been unable to develop effective countermeasures. Their technology adapts to our tactics within hours of engagement. We have lost 47 star systems in the past 30 of your days. Chen realized she was holding her breath. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. Your species' military history suggests an ability to develop unconventional solutions under extreme pressure. We do not ask this lightly. The survival of billions of sentient beings across thousands of worlds depends on finding a way to stop them. The transmission paused again, then added what sounded almost like desperation. We are running out of time, and we are running out of hope. The communication ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Admiral Harrison's voice came through from Earth. Sarah, are you seeing this? Yes, sir. We all are. I'm looking at the same data feed here. My science advisors are telling me that what we just witnessed represents technology thousands of years beyond our current capabilities. Both the Devourers and this Galactic Council. Dr. Webb pulled up additional analysis on his screen. The energy readings from those Devourer ships are off any scale we have measurements for. If even one of those vessels entered our solar system, it could consume Earth in a matter of hours. Then, we're talking about the survival of our own species, not just helping aliens, Rodriguez observed. Chun walked to the window overlooking the lunar surface, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black of space. They chose us for a reason. Not the Vulcans, not some peaceful trade federation. They specifically want humans because we're good at war. The question is, Harrison said, can we be good enough at war to make a difference against something like this? Lieutenant Yates suddenly spoke up. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission. This one is on emergency frequencies from multiple sources. Put it through. The voice that emerged was different from the first, higher-pitched, and carrying what sounded like barely controlled panic. This is Fleet Commander Zephys of the 3rd Galactic Defense Line. The Devourers have broken through our perimeter. They are advancing toward core worlds faster than predicted. Ambassador Kelthera's 72-hour timeline is now obsolete. We need immediate assistance. Repeat, we need immediate assistance. Static filled the channel. Then, the voice continued. Any species receiving this transmission, please respond. We are transmitting coordinates for emergency evacuation points. The outer rim is lost. The transmission cut to static. Then, silence. Chen turned back to face the command center. Every person there was looking at her, waiting for leadership in a situation that no military academy had ever prepared anyone for. Admiral Harrison, she said slowly, I think our decision just got made for us. How do you figure? Because if these devourers can consume entire star systems, and they're advancing toward inhabited worlds, it's only a matter of time before they work their way to us. We can fight them now, with alien allies and alien technology, or we can wait and fight them alone with what we have. Harrison nodded grimly. And what we have wouldn't last 5 minutes against what we just saw. Dr. Webb pulled up a projection of the galaxy. Based on the transmission data, if they continue at their current rate of advance, they could reach Sol in approximately 18 months. 18 months, Rodriguez repeated. That's assuming they come directly here and don't get distracted by other targets. It's also assuming we can't stop them, Chen added. The Galactic Council specifically asked for us because we think differently. Maybe what they need is someone willing to try tactics that their advanced civilizations consider too risky or unconventional. Admiral Harrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would echo through history. Sarah, prepare a response to their transmission. Tell them that Earth accepts their offer of alliance. But we negotiate as equals, not as conscripts. We want full disclosure about the enemy, complete technical specifications for any equipment we'll be using, and a voice in strategic planning. Sir, are you authorized to make that decision? No, I'm not. But in 18 months, there might not be anyone left to court-martial me if I'm wrong. Chun turned to Lieutenant Yates. Open a channel on the frequencies they provided. Channel open, Admiral. Chen took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would mark either humanity's entry into a larger universe or the beginning of their final chapter. Galactic Cooperative Council, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Forces. Humanity accepts your offer of alliance against the Devourer threat. We are prepared to provide military assistance in exchange for technological advancement and equal partnership in strategic planning. We request immediate technical and tactical briefings, as well as transportation to the combat zone. We're ready to show you what humans can do when the galaxy is on the line. She paused, then added with a slight smile. And, Ambassador Kelthera, you should know that when humans fight for something, we don't just deliver warriors. We deliver everything we have, and then we invent new things we didn't even know we had. You asked for our help because we're good at war. You're about to find out just how good. The response came almost immediately, and, for the first time, the alien voice carried something that sounded like hope. Admiral Chun, your acceptance is noted with gratitude. Transport vessels are already en route to your system. Estimated arrival in 6 of your hours. Prepare your species for war unlike any you have ever fought. And, Admiral, thank you. As the transmission ended, Chun looked around the command center one more time. In 6 hours, humanity would take its first step into a war for the galaxy itself. They had no idea what they were getting into, but then, again, neither did anyone else. The first Galactic Council transport ship to arrive in the Sol system was nothing like what humanity's science fiction had prepared them for. Instead of sleek curves or intimidating angular designs, the vessel looked almost organic, like a massive seed pod made of some crystalline material that seemed to bend light around itself. It measured nearly 3 kilometers in length and simply appeared in Earth orbit without any visible means of propulsion, causing every space traffic controller in the system to panic simultaneously. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, Earth's most advanced warship, feeling completely inadequate as she watched the alien vessel through the viewscreen. Her ship, which had been humanity's pride just hours ago, looked like a toy boat next to an aircraft carrier. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel," reported Lieutenant Kim at the communications station. "Put it through." The voice that emerged was the same one they had heard in the initial contact, Ambassador Kelthera. "Captain Santos, we appreciate your vessel's escort. However, we must request that you maintain a distance of at least 50 kilometers during our approach to your lunar facilities." "May I ask why, Ambassador?" "Our propulsion systems generate gravitational distortions that could affect your ship's structural integrity. We do not wish to damage your vessel before we have the opportunity to properly upgrade it." Santos exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander James Park. "They're worried about accidentally crushing us," Park murmured. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Chun from Luna Station. We're prepared to receive your delegation." "Admiral, we appreciate your readiness. However, we must inform you that this vessel carries not just diplomatic personnel, but also the first wave of technological integration specialists and military advisors. The situation has deteriorated faster than our initial projections indicated." On Luna Station, Admiral Chen watched through the observation deck as the massive alien ship approached. The scale was overwhelming, and she found herself wondering how many such vessels the Galactic Council possessed, and whether it would be enough. Admiral Dr. Webb approached with a tablet full of preliminary analysis. "We've been scanning their ship with everything we have. The readings don't make sense." "How so?" "The hull material appears to be some kind of programmable matter that shifts its properties in real time. Their energy signature is off our scales, but it's perfectly contained. No radiation leakage, no electromagnetic interference. It's like they've mastered physics in ways we didn't know were possible." "That's supposed to make me feel better about our chances?" "Actually, yes. If they have technology this advanced, and they're still losing to the Devourers, it means this enemy is truly beyond conventional capabilities. They really do need something different." The alien ship settled into a stable orbit around Luna, and within minutes, smaller craft began emerging from what appeared to be openings that simply formed in the hull. These shuttle-sized vessels approached Luna Station with the same impossible grace as their mothership. "Incoming shuttles, Luna Station. Please direct us to your primary docking facility." "Ambassador, our largest docking bay can accommodate vessels up to 200 meters in length. That will be sufficient. However, our shuttles will need to reconfigure themselves to match your docking specifications." Admiral Chun watched in amazement as the approaching shuttles literally reshaped themselves, their organic-looking hulls flowing like liquid metal to match the standard docking collar specifications that had been transmitted to them. "That's impossible," whispered Chief Engineer Rodriguez, who had arrived from Earth that morning. "Apparently not," Chun replied. The first shuttle docked with a soft thump that barely registered on the station's sensors. Chun, along with a carefully selected team of military officers, scientists, and diplomats, made their way to the docking bay. They had no idea what to expect from their first face-to-face meeting with an alien species. The airlock cycled, and Chun found herself holding her breath as the inner door opened. The being who stepped through was humanoid, but clearly not human. Ambassador Kelthera stood roughly 2 meters tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to have a faint luminescent quality. Her features were elegant and angular, with large eyes that held an intelligence that was clearly non-human, but somehow still familiar. She moved with a fluid grace that suggested either lighter gravity on her homeworld or physical capabilities beyond human norms. "Admiral Chun," Kelthera said, her voice now heard without technological translation. It carried the same musical quality they had noticed in the transmissions. "Thank you for accepting our request for alliance." "Ambassador Kelthera," Chun replied, stepping forward. "Welcome to Luna Station. I have to admit, this isn't exactly how we expected first contact to proceed. Nor how we expected to make it," Kelthera replied with what might have been a smile. "Under normal circumstances, your species would have been contacted through standard first contact protocols after several more decades of observation and gradual preparation." Behind Kelthera, several other beings emerged from the shuttle. Chun noticed that they appeared to be from different species entirely. One was tall and insectoid, with multiple arms and compound eyes. Another was shorter and stockier, with what looked like metallic skin and no visible facial features. A third appeared to be made entirely of some kind of energy contained within a roughly humanoid force field. The Galactic Cooperative Council, Kelthera explained, noticing Chin's observation, includes over 3,000 different species. What you see here represents some of our military and technical specialists who will be working with your people. Dr. Webb stepped forward. Ambassador, the diversity of species here suggests different evolutionary paths, different environmental origins. How do you all communicate and coordinate? The insectoid being clicked and chittered in response, and Kelthera translated. Commander Zax asks an excellent question in return. How does a species that evolved on a single world develop such diverse approaches to problem solving? Your planet's history shows remarkable variation in military doctrine, technological development, and social organization despite common origins. I think, said General Rodriguez, that's exactly why you need us. Indeed, Kelthera agreed. But first, you need to understand exactly what you're facing. She gestured, and the air in the docking bay shimmered. Suddenly, they were surrounded by a three-dimensional holographic display showing the galaxy from an external perspective. This is our galaxy as it appeared 6 months ago, Kelthera explained. The display showed a typical spiral galaxy, with billions of stars spread across elegant arms. And this, she continued as the display shifted, is our galaxy now. Chen felt her stomach drop. Entire sections of the galaxy's outer rim were simply gone. Not destroyed, not dark, gone. Empty space where star systems had been. The Devourers, Kelthera continued, do not come from our galaxy. They arrived from the void between galaxies, and their technology operates on principles we do not understand. They consume matter directly, breaking down atomic bonds, and converting mass to energy with 100% efficiency. The display zoomed in to show a battle scene. Chen watched as ships the size of Earth's largest cities fired weapons that tore holes in space-time itself, while the defending Galactic Council fleets responded with energy beams that should have been capable of cracking planets. Our most powerful weapons have no effect, the metallic being said, its voice somehow emanating from its entire body. This is Forge Prime Metals, our chief weapons engineer. His people have spent millennia perfecting stellar-scale destructive capabilities. And none of it works? Rodriguez asked. Observe, Metals replied. The hologram showed a Council dreadnought firing what looked like a miniature star at a Devourer vessel. The beam struck the target dead center, and, for a moment, it seemed to have an effect. Then, the Devourer ship's hull simply absorbed the energy and continued its advance. They adapt, Kelthera explained. Not just tactically, but at a fundamental level. Their ships learn from each attack and become immune to that type of damage within hours. Chen studied the display. What about physical attacks? Kinetic weapons, ramming, that sort of thing? Commander Zax chittered excitedly, and Kelthera translated. He says that is exactly the kind of thinking we hoped for. Physical attacks do cause damage, but their defensive capabilities are still formidable. The energy being stepped forward, its voice carrying an odd harmonic resonance. I am Flow Through Quantum, Strategic Coordinator. Your species' historical records show extensive use of what you call asymmetric warfare. Please explain this concept. Dr. Webb looked to General Rodriguez, who cleared his throat. Asymmetric warfare is when a smaller, less equipped force uses unconventional tactics to defeat a larger, more advanced enemy. Guerrilla warfare, surprise attacks, psychological operations, using the enemy's strengths against them. Your species has defeated technologically superior opponents multiple times throughout your history, Flow Through Quantum observed. How? By refusing to fight on their terms, Chen replied. By changing the rules of engagement. By doing things they didn't expect and couldn't prepare for. Kelthera nodded slowly. This is why we need humanity. Our species have become, perhaps, too civilized. We fight wars according to established protocols. We use tested strategies. We follow rules of engagement that have been developed over millennia. And that makes you predictable, Rodriguez concluded. Exactly. The Devourers have adapted to our conventional approaches because they are precisely that, conventional. Your species has a documented history of abandoning convention when survival is at stake. Commander Zax chittered again, more urgently this time. Kelthera listened, then turned to the humans with an expression that might have been concern. Commander Zax has just received an update from the front lines. The Devourers have broken through our second defensive line. We estimate they will reach the core worlds within 30 of your days. The holographic display shifted to show the current situation. The zone of empty space had grown significantly larger, and the remaining defensive lines looked painfully thin. 30 days, Chen repeated. How long to get our people trained and equipped? That depends, Forge Prime Metals replied, on how quickly your species can adapt to technologies that should theoretically be impossible for beings at your current development level. Show us, Chen said simply. Kelthera gestured again, and the holographic display changed to show technical specifications that made Chen's head spin. Energy manipulation systems, faster-than-light communication arrays, weapons that seem to work by convincing reality that the target shouldn't exist. We will need to enhance your personnel both technologically and biologically, Kelthera explained. Neural interface systems to allow direct control of our technology, physical augmentations to survive in the combat environment, and tactical training that compresses centuries of military doctrine into weeks. Biologically, Dr. Webb asked with obvious concern. Your species' natural reflexes and cognitive processing speed, while impressive for a developing civilization, are insufficient for the combat environment you will be entering. The enhancements are reversible and will not fundamentally alter your essential humanity. Chen looked around at her team. She could see the mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. They were talking about technological advancement that would leap humanity forward by thousands of years, but at the cost of entering a war that had already consumed nearly half a galaxy. How many personnel are we talking about? She asked. Initially, we would like to begin with 5,000 of your military personnel, Flow-Through Quantum replied. If the integration proves successful, we may need to expand to 50,000 or more. And what exactly would they be doing? Learning to fight in ways we cannot, Kelthera answered. Developing tactics we cannot conceive of. Becoming the unpredictable element that might turn the tide. General Rodriguez stepped forward. Ambassador, I need to ask directly. What are our chances of actually surviving this war? Kelthera was quiet for a long moment, and Chen noticed that the other aliens exchanged what might have been glances. General Rodriguez, without human involvement, we estimate our chances of survival at less than 12%. The Devourers are simply too adaptable for conventional resistance. And with us. Unknown. Which is, perhaps, the first time in this conflict that we have been able to say that. Admiral Chen made a decision that she knew would either save humanity or doom them all. Ambassador, we're in. But we do this as partners, not as hired guns. We want full access to your intelligence, complete technical specifications for any equipment our people will be using, and a voice in strategic planning. Agreed. Kelthera replied without hesitation. Admiral, we are not looking for mercenaries or cannon fodder. We are looking for allies who can help us think in ways we never have before. Commander Zax chittered something that sounded urgent, and Kelthera listened with growing concern. What is it? Chen asked. The Devourers have just consumed the Zolonian home system. For billions sentient beings, gone in less than 6 hours. Commander Zax's own people. The insectoid being made a sound that needed no translation. It was grief, pure and simple. Admiral, Kelthera continued, we need to begin immediately. Every day of delay costs billions of lives. Chen nodded grimly. Lieutenant Kim, open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them to begin Phase 1 mobilization. All volunteer special forces personnel, priority recruitment from unconventional warfare specialists. Yes, Admiral. And, Lieutenant, tell them this. We're not just joining a galactic war. We're about to teach the galaxy how humans fight when everything is on the line. As the communication went out, Chen turned back to Kelthera. Ambassador, you said your people have become too civilized to fight this enemy effectively. That is correct. Well, Chen replied with a grim smile. You're about to discover that humans haven't been civilized nearly long enough. The holographic display shifted one more time, showing transport ships already en route to the Sol system. Within hours, the first human volunteers would begin their transformation from planetary warriors to galactic game-changers. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity was about to discover what they were truly capable of when the stakes were the survival of every living thing in the known universe. The transformation chamber aboard the Council vessel Synthesis hummed with energies that made reality itself seem to vibrate. Sergeant Marcus Tank Thompson lay on what the aliens called an integration platform, watching alien symbols dance across holographic displays while trying not to think about what was about to happen to his body. Sergeant Thompson, Dr. Vex, the Galactic Council's chief biological engineer, spoke through the translation matrix, her voice carrying harmonic overtones that suggested vocal cords designed for a different atmosphere. The neural interface installation will feel unusual, but it should not be painful. Tank had volunteered for the first wave of human augmentation along with 499 other Special Forces personnel from around the world. He'd fought in 17 different theaters, survived 3 wars, and led impossible missions against impossible odds. But lying here while aliens prepared to surgically alter his brain was easily the most terrifying thing he'd ever done. "Doc," he said, addressing the council team through the neural link they'd already established for basic communication. "Just promise me I'll still be human when this is over." Dr. Vex's large, multifaceted eyes shifted in what he had learned was the equivalent of a smile. "Sergeant, the modifications will enhance your existing capabilities without altering your essential nature. Your species' unpredictability is precisely what we hope to preserve." "That's what I'm afraid of," Tank muttered. The procedure began with a sensation like cool water flowing through his skull. The neural interface was unlike anything in human technology, not an implant, but rather a symbiotic organism that would integrate with his nervous system while maintaining its own distinct functionality. "Neural integration at 30%, Dr. Vex announced. "Sergeant, you should begin to sense the expanded data streams." Tank's vision suddenly exploded with information. He could see the electromagnetic spectrum in ways that human eyes had never been designed for. Radio waves, infrared radiation, quantum fluctuations, all of it became visible as overlapping layers of reality. "Holy," he started, then stopped as his enhanced hearing picked up conversations happening 3 decks away on the massive ship. "Sensory enhancement is proceeding normally," Dr. Vex noted. "Now we begin the physical modifications." Tank felt his muscles begin to change. Not growing larger, but becoming more efficient. His bones took on properties that would allow them to withstand accelerations that would pulverize an unaugmented human. His cardiovascular system adapted to process oxygen with efficiency that bordered on the impossible. "Cognitive enhancement beginning," Dr. Vex announced. This was the part Tank had been dreading. His mind suddenly felt like it was expanding, capable of processing multiple data streams simultaneously while maintaining distinct threads of thought. He could feel tactical scenarios running in parallel in his consciousness, analyzing thousands of variables he hadn't even been aware existed. "Integration complete," Dr. Vex announced after what felt like hours but had probably been minutes. "Sergeant Thompson, how do you feel?" Tank sat up slowly, his enhanced vestibular system automatically compensating for the artificial gravity of the alien ship. He felt different, more than human, but somehow still fundamentally himself. "Like I could take on the universe," he replied, then paused as his enhanced cognitive capabilities processed that statement and found it might actually be accurate. "Excellent. Now we begin combat training." The training facility aboard the Synthesis was unlike any military installation Tank had ever seen. The space itself seemed to be constructed from programmable matter that could reconfigure itself into any environment imaginable. As he watched, the chamber transformed from an empty room into a perfect replica of an alien cityscape under siege. Commander Zax, the insectoid military advisor, chittered instructions that Tank's neural interface translated in real time. "Sergeant Thompson, your first exercise will be to eliminate the Devourer infiltration units that have penetrated this urban environment. Where are the targets? That is for you to determine. Your enhanced senses should allow you to detect them." Tank closed his eyes and let his new capabilities take over. His hearing picked up the subtle vibrations of movement that didn't match the simulation's background patterns. His enhanced vision detected heat signatures that were wrong for the environment. Most importantly, his expanded cognitive processing allowed him to analyze the entire tactical situation simultaneously. 3 targets, he announced. One in the building to my northeast, moving through what appears to be a ventilation system. One underground, probably using maintenance tunnels. And one that's trying to mask its presence by mimicking the local wildlife. Impressive detection, Commander Zax acknowledged. Now eliminate them. Tank had been issued what the Council called a reality adjustment weapon, a device that looked like a hybrid between a rifle and a tuning fork. According to the briefings, it worked by convincing local space-time that the target shouldn't exist in its current configuration. Moving with speed and grace that his enhanced physiology made possible, Tank sprinted toward the first building. His augmented strength allowed him to leap directly to a third-story window, while his enhanced balance kept him stable during impossible maneuvers. The first target was exactly where his senses had indicated. The Devourer Infiltrator looked like a biomechanical spider the size of a dog, with too many legs and an approach to physics that hurt to look at directly. Tank fired his weapon. The effect was immediate and disturbing. The target simply ceased to exist, leaving behind a brief smell of ozone and a faint feeling that reality had been bent in ways it didn't appreciate. Target 1 eliminated, he reported, already moving toward the underground tunnel system. The second target was more challenging. It had adapted to his presence, somehow sensing his enhanced capabilities and modifying its tactics accordingly. Tank found himself in a running battle through maintenance tunnels that seemed to shift their configuration as the pursuit continued. His enhanced cognitive capabilities kicked into high gear, running predictive algorithms based on the target's movement patterns while simultaneously analyzing the tunnel system's layout for tactical advantages. "This thing learns fast," he muttered, firing at a target that was no longer where his calculations said it should be. "Adaptation is their primary capability." Commander Zax's voice came through his neural link. "However, you possess something they cannot easily account for, which is human intuition." Tank stopped calculating and started feeling. Something about the target's movement pattern felt wrong, too organized, too predictable. He closed his eyes and let his enhanced senses paint a picture of the tunnel system, then made a choice that had nothing to do with logic. Instead of following the target, he went up. His augmented strength allowed him to punch through the tunnel ceiling, emerging in what appeared to be a shopping district in the simulated city. The Devourer Infiltrator burst from a maintenance cover 3 seconds later, exactly where Tank's intuition had told him it would. Target 2 eliminated, he reported, already tracking the third target. The final infiltrator was the most challenging because it was trying to hide among simulated civilians. Tank's enhanced senses could detect its presence, but the rules of engagement prohibited collateral damage. "Commander Zax, I can detect the target, but I need to isolate it from the civilians. Use human tactics, Sergeant. What would your species do in this situation?" Tank grinned. His people had a long history of dealing with enemies who hid among non-combatants, and most of the solutions involved thinking outside the conventional tactical box. "I'm going to make it come to me," he announced. Instead of hunting the target, Tank positioned himself in the center of the civilian area and began dismantling his weapon. To any observer, it would appear he was disarming himself, making him a perfect target for an opportunistic attack. The Devourer Infiltrator took the bait, emerging from its hiding place among the civilians to attack what appeared to be a vulnerable enemy. Tank had reassembled his weapon in the 3 seconds it took the target to cross the distance. Target 3 eliminated, he reported as reality reluctantly erased another impossible entity. "Exercise complete," Commander Zax announced as the simulation environment dissolved. "Sergeant Thompson, your performance exceeded our projections." "How so?" "You adapted to unfamiliar technology and unknown enemy capabilities in real time, developed effective countermeasures on the fly, and, most importantly, used tactics that our databases show no previous examples of." Tank looked around the empty training chamber, still getting used to his enhanced senses. "Commander, this was just a simulation. How will this translate to actual combat?" "That," said a new voice, "is what we are about to discover." Tank turned to see Admiral Chun entering the training facility, accompanied by Ambassador Kelthra and several other human officers who were showing signs of their own recent augmentation. "Admiral," Tank said, coming to attention. "At ease, Sergeant. How are you feeling about the modifications?" "Honestly, ma'am, like I could take on an army. But also like I'm not entirely sure I'm still human." "You are," Dr. Vex interjected, appearing with that unsettling alien grace. "Our scans show that the essential neural patterns that make you uniquely human remain unchanged. You have simply been given additional capabilities to work with." Admiral Chen nodded. "Good, because we're about to test those capabilities in actual combat. The Devourers have broken through the third defensive line. Council High Command wants to field test human tactics immediately." "Ma'am, how many of us have been augmented so far?" 250. The rest are still in the integration process." Commander Zax chittered urgently, and Kelthera translated. "The frontline situation has become critical. 3 more star systems have been consumed in the past 6 hours. The Council is requesting immediate deployment." Tank looked around at his fellow augmented soldiers. They all had the same slightly overwhelming air of enhanced capability, but, underneath, they were still recognizably human. Still the same people who had volunteered to fight for a species they'd never met against an enemy they didn't understand. What's the mission, Admiral? Chen activated a holographic display that showed a star system under siege. The Kethri system. 7 billion inhabitants across 4 inhabited worlds. The Devourers are beginning their approach, and the local defense forces are completely outmatched. Our mission is to hold them off until the civilians can be evacuated? Think asked. No, Sergeant, Kelthra replied grimly. Your mission is to defeat them. Tank felt his enhanced cognitive capabilities processing that statement and finding it statistically improbable. Ambassador, how exactly are 250 humans supposed to defeat a force that's been consuming entire star systems? By doing what humans do best, Admiral Chen replied. By refusing to accept that victory is impossible. The briefing that followed was unlike anything in Tank's military experience. The enemy they were facing operated on principles that seemed to violate basic physics. Their ships could adapt to any conventional weapon within hours. Their tactics evolved in real time based on observed enemy behavior. And their goal was not conquest, but complete consumption of all matter in the galaxy. The good news, Dr. Vex explained, is that they adapt based on patterns they can recognize. Your species' documented tendency toward unpredictable tactical innovation should make it difficult for them to develop effective countermeasures. The bad news. Think asked. The bad news is that if this approach fails, there may not be enough time to develop alternative strategies. Commander Zax brought up tactical displays showing the Devourer fleet approaching the Kethri system. Each ship was easily the size of Earth's moon, and there were dozens of them moving in perfect formation. Their standard approach, he chittered through translation, is to establish orbital positions around inhabited worlds and begin systematic molecular disassembly. The process takes approximately 14 hours per world. Tank studied the displays. What kind of defenses are we working with? The Kethri have a standard planetary defense grid, Kelthra explained. Energy weapons, shield systems, and a small fleet of system defense vessels. All useless against the Devourers. So we need to do something that's not standard, Tank concluded. Exactly. Sergeant, you and your team will have access to modified council vessels equipped with hybrid human galactic technology. Your weapon systems have been configured to accept human tactical innovations. Tank looked at the specifications for the ships they'd be using. They were smaller and more maneuverable than standard council vessels, designed to take advantage of human reflexes and tactical thinking. Admiral, what's the time frame? The Devourers will reach the Kethri system in 18 hours. Civilian evacuation is already underway, but there are 7 billion people to relocate. Even with council transport capability, they need at least 36 hours. So we need to buy them 18 hours, Tank said. Against an enemy that has never been successfully engaged in conventional combat, Commander Zax added. Tank felt his enhanced cognitive capabilities running through thousands of tactical scenarios, but, more importantly, he felt his very human intuition telling him that there might be a way to make this work. Permission to speak freely, Admiral? Granted. Ma'am, the Galactic Council has been fighting this war using advanced tactics and superior technology. And they've been losing because the enemy adapts to everything they throw at them. Continue. But what if we don't fight them with advanced tactics? What if we fight them with the oldest, most basic approach to warfare that humans know? Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. Which is? Tank grinned, his enhanced features making the expression slightly predatory. We hit them with rocks. The silence that followed was broken by Commander Zax's chittering, which the translation system rendered as something that might have been laughter. Sergeant, Kelthra said slowly, please explain. The Devourers adapt to patterns they recognize. Energy weapons, formation tactics, strategic positioning, all things that follow logical rules they can analyze and counter. But what if we use tactics so primitive, so illogical, that their adaptation algorithms don't have a reference point? Dr. Vex's multifaceted eyes shifted in what Tank was learning to recognize as intense interest. Continue. Kamikaze attacks, ramming speeds, weapons that work by pure kinetic force instead of exotic physics. Make them fight a Stone Age war with Star Age technology. Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment, then slowly began to smile. Sergeant, that is either the most brilliant tactical insight I've ever heard, or the most insane. Ma'am, at this point, I'm not sure there's a difference. Commander Zax chittered excitedly and began bringing up new tactical displays. Human Tactics database indicates extensive use of what you call asymmetric warfare. Smaller forces defeating larger ones through unconventional means. Exactly, Tank replied. We can't outgun them, we can't out-tech them, and we can't out-adapt them. But maybe we can out-crazy them. The planning session that followed would have been impossible without the enhanced cognitive capabilities that the augmentation process had provided. Tank and his team, working with Council tactical specialists, began developing battle plans that deliberately ignored every advanced military doctrine that galactic civilization had developed over millions of years. We're going to fight the most advanced enemy in galactic history, Tank announced to his assembled team, using tactics that wouldn't have been out of place in ancient Earth's most primitive conflicts. His enhanced senses picked up the mix of excitement and apprehension from his fellow soldiers. But underneath it all, he could detect something that made him proud to be human: determination. Sergeant, one of his team members asked, what are our chances? Tank looked out through the observation deck at the stars that might not exist tomorrow if they failed. Unknown, he replied. And for the first time since this war began, that might actually be good news. The Kethery system's primary star cast an orange glow across the assembled fleet as the first human crewed vessels prepared for a battle unlike any in galactic history. Tank stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, a ship that represented the impossible fusion of human tactical thinking and Galactic Council technology, watching as the Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of mechanical locusts. Contact, announced Lieutenant Sarah Park, his communications officer, and one of the most recent batch of augmented humans. Her enhanced neural interface allowed her to monitor dozens of communication channels simultaneously. Devourer fleet, bearing 27 Mark IV. Estimated composition: 43 capital ships, each measuring approximately 3,400 kilometers in length. Tank felt his enhanced cognitive capabilities automatically calculating the mass ratios involved. Each Devourer ship outmassed his entire human fleet by a factor that his unaugmented brain wouldn't have been able to process. Well, he said to his crew, nobody ever said this would be fair. The Defiance was one of 50 ships crewed by augmented humans, each vessel roughly the size of a Terran destroyer, but equipped with technology that bent the laws of physics in ways that still made Tank's enhanced mind struggle to comprehend. More importantly, they had been specifically configured to execute the deliberately primitive tactics that he and his team had developed. Admiral Chun, to all human vessels, came the transmission from the fleet flagship. Remember, we're not trying to win a conventional engagement. We're trying to confuse the enemy long enough to complete civilian evacuation. Roger that, Admiral, Tank replied. Time to show these galaxy eaters how humans fight when the chips are down. The Devourer fleet moved with the terrifying precision that had characterized their advance across the galaxy. Their ships formed a perfect sphere around the Kethery system's inhabited worlds, beginning the systematic positioning that would allow them to commence molecular disassembly. They're following standard consumption protocol, reported Dr. Vex through the neural link from her position aboard the Council command vessel. Predictable approach vectors, optimal positioning for maximum efficiency. Perfect, Tank replied. That means they're not expecting what we're about to do. He opened a channel to his squadron commanders. All units, execute Plan Caveman. I repeat, execute Plan Caveman. What followed would have horrified any military strategist trained in conventional galactic warfare. Instead of maintaining formation and engaging with long-range energy weapons, the human vessels scattered like a disturbed swarm of insects, each ship moving on what appeared to be completely random vectors. Tank's enhanced reflexes allowed him to pilot the Defiance through maneuvers that would have been impossible for an unaugmented human to survive. His ship dove toward the nearest Devourer vessel at maximum acceleration, running silent with all sophisticated sensors offline, presenting the electromagnetic signature of nothing more than an unusually fast asteroid. Sergeant, his tactical officer called out, they're not responding to our approach. Their targeting systems aren't even tracking us. That's because we don't look like a threat, Tank replied, his enhanced cognitive abilities running through the tactical calculations in real time. To their sensors, we're just debris. The Devourer ships had adapted over months of warfare to ignore anything that didn't present a significant energy signature or follow recognizable attack patterns. They had learned to focus their defensive capabilities on the energy weapons and formation tactics that characterized advanced galactic warfare. They hadn't learned to defend against a ship full of augmented humans traveling at relativistic speeds with the intention of physically ramming them. Brace for impact, Tank announced as the Defiance closed the final kilometers to target. The collision was spectacular. The Defiance, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed and enhanced with programmable matter that maximized kinetic transfer, struck the Devourer vessel amidships with the force of a small nuclear weapon. To Tank's amazement, the impact actually damaged the target. The Devourer's ship, designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks, had no immediate adaptation for kinetic force applied at relativistic speeds. Direct hit, he reported as his ship's automatic systems pulled them away from the damaged enemy vessel. Target showing hull breach and what appears to be systemic damage. Confirmed damage, came the voice of Commander Zax from the Council monitoring station. Devourer adaptive systems are attempting to analyze the attack pattern. Tank grinned as he watched his tactical display. Across the battlefield, 49 other human vessels were executing similar attacks, each one targeting a different Devourer ship with pure kinetic force applied in ways that no civilized military would consider. The results were better than they had dared hope. The Devourer fleet, faced with attacks that their adaptation algorithms had no reference point for, began responding with increasingly erratic behavior. They're trying to adapt, Dr. Vex reported, but their systems are designed to counter sophisticated technological approaches. They don't have protocols for defending against what essentially amounts to very fast rocks. Tank opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All units, Phase 2. Let's show them what human creativity really looks like. What followed was a masterclass in asymmetric warfare adapted for the space age. Human vessels used their superior maneuverability to execute attacks that followed no logical pattern. Some ships fired their weapons while spinning on multiple axes, creating firing patterns that looked more like abstract art than military tactics. Others used their programmable matter hulls to physically grapple with enemy vessels, attempting to tear apart their targets through brute force. The most effective attack came from Lieutenant Commander Jackson's vessel, which had jettisoned its entire weapon loadout and instead filled its cargo bay with chunks of programmable matter configured to be as dense and kinetically efficient as possible. Shotgun approach, Jackson reported as his ship accelerated toward a cluster of Devourer vessels, firing everything at once. His ship released thousands of projectiles, each one traveling at tremendous speed, but with no energy signature that would trigger conventional defensive systems. The effect was like firing a massive shotgun at targets designed to defend against laser weapons. 3 Devourer ships suffered significant damage before their adaptation protocols could develop countermeasures. This is insane, Admiral Chun reported from her position coordinating the battle. It's actually working. Tank felt a moment of fierce pride as he watched the tactical display. For the first time since the war began, Devourer vessels were taking damage and showing signs of confusion. Their perfect formations were beginning to break down as they attempted to respond to threats that didn't follow any pattern their systems could recognize. Sergeant Thompson, came a transmission from Ambassador Kelthera. The civilian evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule. Your tactics are providing exactly the confusion we hoped for. How much more time do you need, Ambassador? Approximately 6 hours to complete full evacuation. Tank looked at his tactical display. The Devourer fleet was beginning to adapt, developing new defensive patterns that would soon counter their primitive approach. 6 hours might be optimistic. All units, he announced, time for Phase 3. Maximum Chaos Protocol. Phase 3 was the most dangerous part of their plan, and the part that had made even the augmented humans nervous during planning. Instead of continuing their hit-and-run tactics, the human fleet began actively engaging in close-quarters combat with vessels that could have consumed their entire homeworld. Tank's ship dove directly into the midst of the Devourer formation, using its enhanced maneuverability to stay between the massive enemy vessels where their own weapons couldn't target him without risking friendly fire. This is like fighting a pack of whales while riding a dolphin, his pilot observed, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for any unaugmented human to survive. Except the whales can eat reality, Tank replied, and we're made of enhanced stubbornness. The close-quarters engagement revealed something unexpected about the Devourer vessels. While their adaptation capabilities were formidable and their technology was beyond galactic comprehension, they had one significant weakness. They weren't designed for the kind of chaotic, unpredictable combat that humans excelled at. Their ships were massive, powerful, and efficient, but they couldn't match the maneuverability of smaller vessels piloted by beings with reflexes enhanced beyond biological norms and a cultural history of refusing to surrender even when logic dictated they should. Tank. Admiral Chen's voice carried both excitement and disbelief. You need to see the overall tactical picture. Tank's neural interface allowed him to access the battle overview while continuing to pilot his ship through impossible maneuvers. What he saw made his enhanced cognitive capabilities struggle to process the implications. The Devourer fleet was in disarray. For the first time in their advance across the galaxy, they were facing an enemy that they couldn't adapt to quickly enough. Human tactics were evolving faster than their countermeasures could develop. They're learning, Tank observed, but we're learning faster. More than that, Dr. Vex interjected through the neural link. Your species' capacity for tactical innovation in real time appears to exceed their adaptation algorithms. Every time they develop a counter to one of your approaches, you've already moved on to something else. Tank felt a moment of understanding. This was why the Galactic Council had needed humanity, not because humans were better warriors than the advanced species of the galaxy, but because humans approached warfare in ways that couldn't be predicted or systematized. All units, he announced. The evacuation is proceeding. Let's buy them as much time as possible. Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to be so annoying that they can't focus on their real objective. What followed was the most chaotic space battle in recorded galactic history. Human vessels executed tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare, using approaches that range from the brilliantly innovative to the completely insane. Some ships used their programmable matter hulls to literally grab onto Devourer vessels and attempt to drag them out of position. Others jettisoned their entire power cores and detonated them at close range, gambling their crew's lives on the effectiveness of their escape pods. The most successful approach came when Tank realized that the Devourer ship's adaptation protocols had a critical weakness. They assumed that any attacking vessel wanted to survive the engagement. All units, he announced, new tactic. We're going to do something that no sane military force would ever attempt. Which is, Admiral Chen asked. We're going to win by losing. Tank ordered his ship to shut down all defensive systems and begin transmitting on every frequency they could generate. To the Devourer sensors, the Defiance would appear to be a critically damaged vessel broadcasting distress signals. The nearest Devourer ship, following protocols designed for efficiency, moved to consume the apparently helpless target. Tank waited until the massive vessel had committed to its approach, then activated every weapon system his ship possessed while simultaneously detonating emergency charges that would destroy his own vessel. The explosion occurred inside the Devourer ship's defensive perimeter, causing damage that their adaptation systems hadn't been configured to prevent. Defiance to all units. Tank transmitted as his crew evacuated to emergency pods. The kamikaze approach works. They can't adapt to tactics that result in our own destruction because no civilized species would ever use them. Admiral Chen's voice carried a mixture of admiration and horror. Tank, you just sacrificed your ship to prove a point. Ma'am, I just proved that human tactics can work against an enemy that's been consuming galaxies. Sometimes the cost is worth it. The battle continued for another 4 hours, with human vessels executing increasingly desperate and innovative attacks against an enemy that slowly began to understand what they were facing. But by the time the Devourer adaptation protocols had fully analyzed human tactical approaches, the civilian evacuation was complete. All human vessels, Ambassador Kelthera's voice came through the neural link. Civilian evacuation is complete. You have exceeded all expectations. Tank, now aboard a rescue vessel after his ship's destruction, looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer fleet finally beginning to overcome their tactical innovations. How long until they finish adapting to our approaches? He asked. Approximately 2 hours, Dr. Vex replied. But, by then, the civilian population will be safely beyond their reach. Tank felt his enhanced cognitive capabilities processing the larger implications. They had bought time, saved billions of lives, and proven that human tactics could be effective against the Devourers. But they had also revealed their capabilities to an enemy that would now be prepared for human-style warfare. Admiral Chen, he said, what's our next move? Our next move, Admiral Chen replied, is to take everything we've learned here and scale it up. The Galactic Council has seen what human tactics can accomplish. They want to integrate our approaches into their overall strategy. Tank looked out at the stars, now knowing that many of them held worlds that might survive because of what they had accomplished here. Ma'am, there's something else. The Devourers may adapt to our current tactics, but they can't adapt to our capacity for innovation. As long as we keep developing new approaches faster than they can counter them, we might actually have a chance of winning this war, Admiral Chen concluded. Tank smiled grimly. Ma'am, we're humans. We don't know how to do anything else. 6 months after the Battle of Ketheri, the war had transformed into something that no species in galactic history had ever experienced. What had begun as a desperate defensive action against an unstoppable force had evolved into the most chaotic, unpredictable, and strangely effective military campaign the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Sarachin stood in the command center of the UES Reckoning, humanity's first purpose-built galactic warship, watching tactical displays that showed the impossible. The Devourer advance had not just been halted, but was actually being pushed back. Status report. She called to her integrated Human Council crew. Devourer fleet concentration has been reduced by 37% over the past 4 months, reported Commander Park, her voice carrying the harmonics that indicated she was simultaneously processing data streams from 17 different sources. Current retreat vector suggests they're attempting to regroup in the Andromeda Gap. Human tactical units? All 53 battle groups are operational, and continuing innovation protocols. Tank reported from his new position as Director of Asymmetric Warfare. His latest augmentations included cognitive enhancements that allowed him to coordinate chaotic tactics across multiple star systems simultaneously. Latest development is the Crazy Ivan maneuver adapted for hyperspace combat. Admiral Chun smiled despite the gravity of the situation. Over the past months, human military terminology had begun infiltrating Galactic Council strategic doctrine in ways that would have been hilarious if the stakes weren't so high. Ambassador Kelthera. Chun addressed the alien diplomat who had become her closest advisor. Council assessment. Admiral, the Council High Command reports that Devourer adaptation algorithms are experiencing what their analysts describe as critical cascade failure, Kelthera replied, her musical voice carrying undertones of amazement. They cannot develop countermeasures faster than human tactical innovation can generate new approaches. Dr. Webb, now serving as Director of Human Council Integration, looked up from his analysis station. The psychological profiles are fascinating. The Devourers appear to be designed for fighting logical, predictable opponents. Human warfare violates so many fundamental assumptions about rational behavior that their systems literally cannot process our tactical approaches. Show me the latest engagement data, Chun requested. The main display shifted to show the Battle of Proxima Tertius, where Colonel Martinez had successfully defended an entire star system using what he had cheerfully described as the stupidest plan in military history. Instead of attempting to match the Devourer's technological advantages, Martinez had deployed his ships in a pattern that resembled ancient human sword-fighting techniques, using three-dimensional space as if it were a medieval battlefield. The attacking Devourer fleet had been so confused by the apparent irrationality of the defense that their adaptation systems had suffered what could only be described as a breakdown. The Devourers lost 18 capital ships attempting to counter tactics that were based on 14th-century European combat doctrine, Dr. Webb reported. Their AI systems kept trying to find the logical strategic purpose behind maneuvers that were designed purely for psychological effect. Tank pulled up additional tactical displays. That's become our standard approach. We're not fighting them with superior technology or better strategy. We're fighting them by being so unpredictable that their adaptation systems can't find stable patterns to counter. The human factor, Kelthera observed, has become a recognized element in Council military planning. Your species' ability to function effectively while violating logical tactical principles is now considered a strategic resource. Admiral Chin studied the overall galactic map. The Devourer-controlled territory, which 6 months ago had encompassed nearly half the galaxy, had been reduced to less than 20%. More importantly, the remaining Devourer fleets were showing signs of strategic confusion that suggested their command structure was beginning to break down. What's our assessment of their current capabilities? She asked. Diminishing, replied Flother Quantum, the energy being who served as strategic coordinator. Devourer fleets are still individually formidable, but their collective behavior suggests loss of central coordination. Dr. Vex materialized through her usual impossible means of transportation. Admiral, our analysis indicates that the Devourer command structure was designed around perfect adaptation to any threat. The existence of a threat they cannot adapt to appears to be causing systematic failures in their decision-making processes. Tank leaned back in his chair, his enhanced features showing satisfaction. So we've managed to break their AI by being too human for them to understand. More precisely, Dr. Webb corrected. We've demonstrated that there are approaches to warfare that cannot be systematized or predicted. The Devourer's greatest strength has become their greatest weakness. Admiral Chen felt a moment of pride in her species, followed immediately by concern about the larger implications. What happens when we've driven them back completely? Do we just hope they stay gone? That, said a new voice, is precisely what we need to discuss. Everyone in the command center turned to see a figure that none of them had encountered before. The being appeared to be composed of crystalline structures that reflected light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, reality seemed to vibrate. I am Architect Prime, eldest member of the Council High Command, the entity announced. I have come to discuss the conclusion of this conflict. Ambassador Kelthera immediately shifted into formal diplomatic posture. Architect Prime honors us with their presence. Ambassador Kelthera, the honor is ours. Admiral Chun, your species has accomplished something that we believed was impossible. Chun stood at attention. Sir, we've done what needed to be done. Indeed. And, in doing so, you have revealed a fundamental flaw in our understanding of warfare itself. We had believed that military conflict was ultimately about superior technology and resources. Your people have demonstrated that it is actually about superior adaptation and innovation. Tank spoke up. Sir, with respect, I think we've just been lucky that our particular brand of insanity happened to work against this particular enemy. Architect Prime's crystalline form shifted in what might have been amusement. Sergeant Thompson, what you call insanity is actually a level of tactical flexibility that most advanced civilizations lose as they become more sophisticated. Your species retains the ability to abandon established doctrine when circumstances require it. The question, Dr. Webb interjected, is what we do with the remaining Devourer forces. Our current intelligence suggests they're attempting to retreat beyond galactic boundaries. Unacceptable, Architect Prime replied. The Devourers represent an existential threat to all life in the universe. They must be completely eliminated. Admiral Chin felt a chill. Sir, you're talking about pursuing them beyond our galaxy. That could mean a campaign lasting centuries, Architect Prime confirmed. The Council has voted to authorize a joint human galactic expeditionary force to pursue the Devourers to their origin point and ensure they can never threaten any civilization again. Tank looked at the strategic displays showing the vast distances involved. That's not a military campaign. That's a generational commitment. Exactly, Kelthera agreed. Admiral Chun, the Council is offering humanity full membership in galactic civilization, along with the responsibility of leading the expeditionary force. Your tactical capabilities have proven essential. Admiral Chen looked around the command center at her crew, humans and aliens working together in ways that would have been unimaginable just months ago. What exactly are you proposing? Architect Prime activated a holographic display that showed the broader universe beyond their galaxy. We are proposing that humanity become the galactic military specialists. Your people would lead the expeditionary force while continuing to develop the tactical innovations that have proven so effective. And in exchange, full access to galactic technology, unlimited resources for your species' expansion and development, and a permanent voice in council governance, Kelthera replied. Essentially, we are offering humanity a position as the galaxy's guardians. Dr. Webb pulled up population projections. The numbers work. With galactic technology, we could support human populations in the trillions while maintaining the diversity and competitive pressure that generates our tactical innovation. Tank was studying the strategic implications. It would mean some of us never come home. This expeditionary force would be out there for centuries, maybe millennia. Yes, Architect Prime acknowledged. But the alternative is waiting for the Devourers to return with adaptations to your current tactics. They must be eliminated at their source. Admiral Chun made the decision that would define humanity's future. I'll need to consult with Earth Command. But, speaking personally, I think this is what we've been preparing for our entire history. How so? Kelthera asked. Every war we've ever fought, every impossible victory we've managed to pull off, it's all been training for something like this. We've spent our entire existence as a species learning how to fight against impossible odds. Tank nodded slowly. And now we've got the biggest impossible odds in the universe. The decision doesn't need to be immediate, Architect Prime said. But the expeditionary force should be assembled within the next galactic year. Admiral Chen looked out at the stars, knowing that many of them were now free from the threat of consumption because humans had been willing to fight for them. Sir, I think I can speak for my species. We didn't ask to be the galaxy's warriors, but we seem to be good at it. If this is what needs to be done, then humans will do it, Tank finished. Because that's what we do. The months that followed saw the largest mobilization in human history. Volunteers from every nation, every culture, every background joined the expeditionary force that would carry human tactical innovation beyond the boundaries of known space. The transformation was remarkable. Humans who had never left their home planet found themselves working alongside beings from thousands of different worlds, united in a purpose that transcended species, culture, or individual ambition. Dr. Webb, now serving as Chief Integration Specialist for the Expeditionary Force, marveled at the diversity of the fleet being assembled. We have humans from every military tradition on Earth working with aliens representing technologies we're only beginning to understand. It shouldn't work. But it does, Admiral Chen replied, watching as human tactical officers trained council strategists in asymmetric warfare while learning alien technologies that pushed the boundaries of possibility. Tank, now commanding the Expeditionary Force's primary assault division, had discovered that human tactical thinking scaled remarkably well to galactic warfare. The principles are the same, he explained to a group of alien military specialists. Find what the enemy expects, then do something else. The scale changes, but the approach doesn't. The launching ceremony for the Expeditionary Force took place in the Council's primary shipyards, where vessels representing the combined technological achievements of hundreds of civilizations had been assembled into the most formidable military force in galactic history. Ambassador Kelthera stood with Admiral Chun as they watched the final preparations. Admiral, are you certain about this course of action? Chun looked at the fleet that would carry humanity's tactical revolution beyond the galaxy itself. Ambassador, 6 months ago, humanity didn't even know we weren't alone in the universe. Now we're leading a galactic expeditionary force against an enemy that eats reality.